Good Wednesday evening. Welcome to Overtime here on WOTM. I'm Gerhard Mathangani. It's Wednesday, so we're joined by our main man, our top researcher and historian, Mark Everett Kelly. We didn't get to see you on Monday because of the holiday. Good to have you back in studio here today. You have a great Who's Better segment with a great look at a pair of pitchers that are household names. Obviously, we'll take a look at that coming up in a little bit. We'll also talk NFL rookies on the heels of one of the Alabama stars making a big run today and winning another award. We'll talk about that. But we'll start with Braves baseball. Closing in on the end of the first half of the baseball season. This is an Atlanta team that kind of has feel like they've been sputtering for most of the year. Some good points here, some high points here, then some low points. You have a few all-stars that we'll hit in a bit. But at this point of the year, what's your makeup of what they've done so far, and then kind of break down what you've seen here lately?
I think for the first time, if I was a Braves fan, I'd be really mad because the way that they finished that series against the Marlins, you expected them to come out and just manhandle Pittsburgh, which they should have done, because they are much better than the Pirates. They should not be losing games to the Pirates, and especially in that first game, that sixth inning, where it just looked like they were asleep. And there have been way too many of those instances for the Braves this year, where it looks like they're just disinterested. And with all the talent they have on that roster, they should not be doing that right now, or at any point. You figure Acuna's been in the league now 3 years. Albies been in the league 3 years, and he's hitting too good to have mental lapses that he's been having in the field. Acuna too, when he's running the bases. One of the times in the series against Pittsburgh, not running out a ground ball, not running out a double play ball, not bothering to break up a double play ball. Those little types of things you need to get over, and that's professional. That's being a professional. Now I could understand as a ball player, you play every day. You're going to have highs and lows of when you feel you ever have the energy to play. Maybe you are just down for that day. I get it, but you cannot lose concentration. And Atlanta, too many times this year, it looks like they were going to take that next step. They have a great comeback win. This is reminiscent, remember, 2 months ago, they had a comeback win like that against the Phillies at home, where they rallied from 4 runs down, and a game they never should have won and won. Figure they'd take off from there. They don't. They struggle. The rally they made against the Marlins the other night, coming down from 3 back or 4 back in the 9th inning, after they had allowed those runs in the top of the 9th, and then you have Fried getting the game-winning hit after it looks like they won, but it was then reversed on the slide where he was out, and they get a game-winning hit by a pitcher. That should vault them into the next series against a team, a last-place team from the National League Central that they should easily beat. And they come out in the first game and lose 11-1 against, that should never happen, and especially the way the game started. You have Acuna getting a hit, and you have Freeman driving him home. Freeman, who has been just red hot up until Monday. He had hit over 457 for over a 12-game span. Then you expect them to just take over and win that game, and then the next day, where the bullpen let them down, it just seems there's always something that's preventing them from winning. And then the mental lapses they had in that 6th inning, where you had Ben Gamel, for crying out loud. Ben Gamel should not be beating you. The third baseman I like for Pittsburgh, I think he's got some talent, but Pittsburgh really has a lot of minor leaguers, guys that really wouldn't get the chance to play in the game if it weren't for Pittsburgh. And Atlanta losing to them the way they did Monday, and then last night with the walk. Those things shouldn't happen. They should have swept Pittsburgh. Now, they get them back today with a 14-3 score, but that's it. That's just it. They've been very inconsistent. And looking at some of the players, you can see some of that inconsistency. Great on one side, bad on the other.
Exactly. 42-44 is their record overall. They sit 3rd place in the NL East, 5 games behind the Mets. As you said, lost 2 of 3 to the Pirates. They have a 3-game stretch to finish out the season before the All-Star break. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's talk about Freddie Freeman. As you mentioned, been really on fire up until just recently over the last couple of days. But one of his things that he's been able to put up is continuing to put up the defending NL MVP still once again putting up good numbers here late in the year when sometimes players start to fall off right before the All-Star break starts.
Well, you expect Freeman to be a key run contributor. And the only thing I thought he might have a problem adjusting to would be his new place in the batting order. But he's done really well batting second. And you see Acuna loves having him bat there because he gets good pitches to hit. And then Albies been driving and runs in the third spot. I mean, Albies, when he started the season, remember how bad he was when the season started? He is a slow starter normally. But he's really picked it up since then. And he's one of the best run producers in the National League since then. And I just don't understand why Atlanta has to have these setbacks when you have those players playing that well over that span of time. So Freeman, over this span, which ended on Monday, he went 0 for 4 on Tuesday, and then today he went 2 for 6. So Monday was the last day really of this streak, 12 games over 457. And there have been other guys, Riley, Acuna, Albies, that have had streaks like this. So that's the good of Atlanta. But then you look at the fact that they're overall, you don't know what you're going to get. You have the ninth inning against Florida where they score 4 runs and they go 3 for 6 runs in scoring position. And then the first 2 games of the series against Pittsburgh, they can't get out of their own way. They go 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position on Tuesday. They go 0 for 1 on Monday, and they're not scoring any runs. And it just seems like they have too many of those games against pitchers they should beat, against teams they should beat. Runners in scoring position especially, they might get guys on base, but they'll go through droughts. Today they went 7 for 14, but going 0 for 10, in the 2-1 loss, I mean, those things can't happen.
Exactly. And the first 2 games out today, 18 innings, or first 2 games in that series, 18 innings, and then when you talk about the level of play at the plate, I think that's where you got some hope today. But one of the big things that I think that is a miss with this squad in particular is they're having these chances, having the opportunities to pick up wins, and that's where they're losing out on. Some of the things that you've said over the last about month or so is that this is a squad that once they do find their groove, they'll be able to really kind of put the pedal to the metal late in the year. And it seems like the opportunities now to do that is actually presenting themselves, but not actually getting it done.
No, and the thing that's really hard to understand is they were one of the top run-scoring teams in baseball up until about the middle of June. And since the middle of June, this is now since June 9th, they have just been so utterly inconsistent. We're talking about 14 of 19 games where they score 3 runs or fewer. They have 10 of 11 in one stretch where they score 3 runs or fewer. And then they have 14 of 19 games where they get 8 hits or fewer. And those things just, for the Braves, when they're going well, like they were today, it looks very easy. And when they're not going well, you wonder why aren't they doing what they did in those other games. So to have stretches like that where they're consistently not scoring more than 3 runs, and we're talking 14 of a 19-game stretch and 18 of a 24-game stretch of scoring 3 runs or fewer. I mean, 3 runs or fewer, 18 of 24 games is not very good. And that's where Atlanta's really been struggling since June 9th. And over that period, they are only 1 game over 500. So that's the inconsistency right there. Then when you have Max Fried getting roughed up against teams he should beat, the Marlins and Pirates, he should beat both those teams. And I mean, maybe the Braves should get Gamble, and they can put him in left field because he certainly did well against Atlanta. And I think that those are the types of things that Braves have to stop. They can't lose games to the Pirates. They can't let Ben Gamble beat them. They can't let Grabowski, or the new first baseman that throws left-handed, hits right-handed. He had a great series against Atlanta these past couple of days. And Max Fried has got to be more consistent. His pitches were up again. He was outside of the strike zone, and their bullpen too. You can't have Matzik coming in and walking 3 guys in the 9th inning.
Exactly. Another guy that's gone cold is William Contreras, and one of the guys that you talked about over the last 16 games or so. I mean, obviously, he's not really being able to kind of get it done through the dish. And you see the batting average is just ice cold. you've mentioned that some of this production overall needs to be a little bit more widespread, but it looks like an eyesore when it's coming from a player that you expect to be really good in the offense.
Well, Contreras is a guy that really needs, as far as catcher is concerned, the Braves have had injuries for the catching position this year. Darno's a guy who has a history of injuries, but when he plays, he can hit pretty good. He'll get big hits. I remember last year he got a big hit in one of the early season games against the Mets that kind of led to them dominating the Mets last year. Darno's capable of doing that. Alex Jackson, who knows where he's going to be, if he's going to play or not. So Contreras was a guy they were counting on. And up until the Red Sox series, he was doing okay. I remember against the Red Sox, he did pretty well. That's when we thought, okay, here's his coming out party. And then since then, man, he has been very bad. 5 for 51. That's under 200. That's not even the Mendoza line. I don't even know what you call 100. But it's below that. Only 2 runs, 1 RBI. I was looking over the last time a catcher for the Braves had an RBI. They've only had 1 RBI since he's been on this cold streak over the last 16 games. And that was not from him.
Exactly. And you've already kind of mentioned some of the things about the team level, about when they do score 3 runs or fewer, 8 hits or fewer, 4 runs or more, 9 runs, and you see the contrasting thing. The very last thing we'll talk about is the overall all-stars that are going into this all-star break. There's a few guys that for this Braves team that will be going into the all-star break, and they won't have a break. They'll be playing. And some of the guys that obviously that we expected to be here, guys like Freddie Freeman, who won the National League Most Valuable Player last year, and Ronald Acuna, who's having once again just another incredible start to this season, as he's had in the last couple of seasons, also leading the majors right now with runs. It'll be a busy time for these guys, and I think possibly an opportunity for them to get a little bit of rest, get a little bit of a relaxation, not just for these 3, but for the other teams, for the other guys on the team to really focus up and finish strong. Yeah,
well, I think these guys are the most consistent for Atlanta this year. And Acuna is going to be up there in the MVP. Leads the majors in runs scored. Albies is a guy that has 45 RBIs in his last 50 games. You don't expect that from him. He wasn't a big RBI guy, but he really took to that 3 spot. And Freeman is the team leader. He's a guy that gets all the big hits. And if the Braves are going to be something to deal with in the postseason, which, let's face it, the Braves are the best team in that division. I don't care. I know the Mets are playing well, but they're kind of winning with mirrors. They won again today. Game 1, they've been having a lot of come-from-behind wins, but the Braves have more talent than they do. And pitching-wise, I think starters, the Braves can match up well, but their bullpen really has to start performing better, and they really got to give their starters a better shot to win by going longer, and then hopefully their bullpen then can calm down. We've been saying this for all year, and they still have the same problems they had early on. I expected them to grow out of these things. They just haven't. So I think at this point, you have to hold them accountable, because you can't just say, oh, it'll get better. Oh, okay, start paying attention on July 4th. That's really when you have to decide, are we going to contend or are we not going to contend? What are we going to do with the trade deadline? And I think Atlanta definitely is in the contention. So what they do from here is going to really matter. And getting that bullpen straight, getting those starters to go longer, and getting more consistency out of their offense needs to happen.
Exactly. It's a great breakdown of the first half of the season. 42-44 right now, as we said. 3 games left down in South Beach. They'll go from the 305 over to the All-Star break, and they'll come back with a really, really hard schedule coming up after the All-Star break. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we will switch gears over to football. One of the guys that dominated last year for Alabama, now making some waves in the NFL. We'll talk about an award he won and look ahead to a good rookie class coming up next here on Overtime.